Here we go. Photo right here. There it is. Monetary McFly from Monetary Guy 589. Last week, the Federal Reserve paid approximately $2.875 billion in interest payments to commercial banks on their reserve balances. 40% of this went to foreign banks. All right, well, I have the analysis. Now, hopefully, all of us here in the Americas don't get so fucking revolutionary and fucking crazy over this. So let's actually find out what's really going on. Okay. Today, the Fed now pays banks 4.40% on the money. Reserve balances they keep parked at any of the 12 reserve banks. Banks are holding a little over $3.23 trillion in those reserve accounts. Multiply that and you get roughly $2.5 to $2.9 billion every week in interest. So roughly 40% of the checks, about $1.1 billion last week, go to the U.S. branches of foreign headquarters banks because they hold about the same share of reserve. Now, there is a real explanation on why. That's always the question. Why? So the Fed began paying interest on reserves in October 2008 so it could flood the system with liquidity during and after the financial crisis. But yet, they still keep the Fed funds rate within its target range. Now, the earned interest on the reserve has since become the floor for money market rates. When the FOMC adjusts policy, it simply moves how much that rate will be, up or down. High policy at 4.4%, and today's 4 bips higher than it was in early 2022. However, it is still a large balance sheet. Even after 2 years of quantitative tightening, the reserve balances are north of $3 trillion, far above the 2008 norm of $100 billion. There's no offsetting income as well. The Fed's portfolio is stuffed with older treasuries and mortgage-backed securities that yield 2%. With the rate compared to the current asset yield, the Fed has been running operating losses and has stopped sending surplus earning to the treasuries, booking a deferred asset instead. Now, this is the trickery on the book of the government because some of the debt of the government is owed to the people and or to the government, so they can play around with it. That's a topic for another time, but that's something they can do. So, branches of foreign banks operating in the U.S. are big reserve holders for 3 structural reasons. Branches that are not FDIC insured, so they avoid paying deposit insurance fees. Now, these are foreign institutions who aren't paying it. They're not like U.S. banks like Chase or U.S. Bank or Logix or any of the other beautiful ones, okay? Meaning holding reserves is a cheap and risk-free way of holding funds. Now, the liquidity coverage ratio, high liquidity assets like the Fed, counts 100% towards this because the dollars, all right, it helps satisfy the Basel liquidity rules easier, but because the dollars are the most liquid of all things, treasuries are liquid. It is the promise of the United States government to repay every single dollar that has been borrowed back with the said interest rate that was agreed upon when that bond is purchased, okay? Now, next is the funding models. These branches rise as they turn around. They all get up and they help raise short-term dollars in the wholesale markets or via the FX swap, then park them at the Fed. In calm markets, the funding costs are going to be different than the interest at that bank for the reserve. And sometimes they'll look to lock in the overall spread. So if most countries, like in Europe, is why Trump's complaining, they have low interest rates. We are at 4%, or 4.5, 4 handle, right? Sure, okay. Let's just say a number. 4.5, high 4s, maybe 5, okay? And everyone else is lower. Why would you not lock in the best rate you can from the most reliable security in the world? So why not? Now, who is participating in this? Who's doing this, okay? Deutsche Bank, UBS, Barclays, let's see. We got a couple of other. We have BNP. I believe that's Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. Mitsubishi, UFJ, and others appear on top of the New York Fed's weekly list of the largest reserve holders. Now, here's the political debate. From the worst senator of all time, Ted Cruz, worst guy ever. Terrible man, terrible man. He has seized on the optics of paying billions, much of it to foreign outfits, while the Treasury receives no remittance, floating a proposal to eliminate or to tier how much the interest is paid to these institutions to save money. Economists warn in doing so would force banks back into a scarcer reserve and could make it harder for the Fed to control short-term rates without even having larger balance sheet moves. So the bottom line, nothing mysterious has happened. The Fed makes its weekly interest payments at the prevailing rate. the dollar amount looks eye-popping because both rates in this stock of the amount of reserves are the highest that they've been in a long time. Foreign bank branches get a big slice because the U.S. framework makes holding reserves one of the most attractive risk-free trades they can do in the world. Politically, these payments are becoming a hot topic because they show the Fed's own earnings, forcing a pause in the Treasury's remittances and shining a light on who pockets the interest because they have the money. So, very interesting. This is not a conspiracy. This is, you own treasuries, you get the check from the big man. So every single one of you, my friends, we should be owning these treasuries. They're on sale. The United States in its debt, it is a fugazi, it's a fugazi. The fear of the myth of the debt is not real. You cannot equate the spending of a government to the spending of you. You can get maxed out on credit cards. The government can, but they are the printer and creator of its own currency, so they can settle its debts without the collection of taxes, but with the use of printing. Longer topic for another day. But people who believe that this isn't true, when they make it a Peter Schiff moment, and Peter Schiff's a very smart man. Peter Schiff's correct about a lot. Especially, now, while this wasn't directly coming from his mouth, this is me. The big issue with the debt is not the money printing itself, but it's the ability of handling it with the interest on the balance sheet and making it affordable that does not take away from having to eliminate infrastructure, Social Security spending, Medicare, or any other benefits the government is currently providing. When those things start getting cut, when the education gets cut, when the healthcare gets cut, when the Social Security gets cut, when these things start to occur and taxes go up, the money gets out of the economy, that's where the devastation can happen. That's where we have a problem. Because now, you're in a big trouble, Great Depression style, and you have to remember, it's not very complicated. You just got to get money circulating in the economy. But you also have to focus and be careful about where we are putting the pressure of the government to assist with allowing the free market to execute to allow lower prices. Housing. It is the number one topic. By the time it is 20 years from now, we have to make a transformative policy. And that will only come to be when we focus on lowering housing cost, lowering apartment cost. That's the building, that's the maintenance, that's the taxes, the bullshit that comes with it. How can we make that easier for the everyday person to incentivize them into the marketplace of renting to other people? How can we allow for smaller lots and smaller homes to be created, like tiny homes? You're not going to get a big home anymore. It doesn't exist for you, Mr. Gen Z. But if I told you for 50 grand you can get a tiny home and a plot of land you lease for 99 years, now we're on another track. Now we're really having something. Everyone deserves a place to go if they work hard for it. Everyone works hard. The amount of rent we pay in about 5 to 10 years could pay for the tiny home. Pay for the infrastructure in the ground to get put into place. Slide the homes right there, connect them like it's an RV. And that's one way that some cities, some places could look to do this. Is it as easy as I'm saying? No. But when is anything that easy? It's not about it being easy. It's about the hard work we put into it and the results and the positivity that we get out of it. And without those things, we're in a whole load of trouble. So for all you motherfuckers complaining about foreign places, shut the fuck up. Get back to work and go buy your own fucking treasuries to get a crazy yield too then. Bitch.